Welcome in. Take a moment and just arrive. Wherever you are right now, however you're lying, let this be the place you stop. You don't have to do anything else tonight. There's nowhere else to be. Whatever you've been carrying today, the weight of it, the noise of it, you can set it down now. None of it needs to follow you into the dark. And whatever you didn't finish today, it will still be there in the morning. You don't need to hold it any longer. So let's begin to slow everything down. Together. Let your mouth close, soft, and breathe in through your nose, gently, and let it go, slow, like a sigh. There's no rhythm to chase. Just let the breath out take a little longer than the breath in. Breathe in, and let it fall away. And again, in and out, slower still. Now, one deeper one. Take in a breath, and then just a little more on top. And now let it all go. Good. Let the next breath find its own way now. It knows what to do. And as the breathing settles, let your body begin to follow. Let your jaw unclench. Let your teeth come apart just slightly. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears. Let them be heavy. Let your hands open or just rest, however they fall. Let your belly soften with every breath out, nothing held in. Let your legs grow heavy, heavier than they've been all day. And your feet, let them be still and warm. And right here, in the center of your chest, let there be a little warmth, a loosening, as though something you'd been bracing against is finally letting go. You're not waiting for anything now. You're just here, in the low light, at the edge of sleep. Tonight we have a story from Hank, a story he has held for a very long time. There are things that happen in a life, things witnessed, things survived, things that never quite let go, that can't be spoken of easily, not with the people who knew the people involved. But some stories need a witness. Some things need to be said before it's too late to say them. And it's easier, sometimes, to give a story to a stranger in the dark than to anyone he has ever known or loved. Because you won't look at him differently in the morning. Because the dark makes certain truths easier to speak out loud. This is one of those stories. It's filled with things that don't fully explain themselves, with questions that were never answered, and silences that were never broken. Some of it will stay with you. That is the nature of these things. But tonight, it finally gets told. This is the off-season, before we sleep.
Now, I'll tell you this one. But you ought to know going in that I never did get the end of it. Nobody did. And I'm going to tell it to you the way it came to me, which was in pieces, over about 20 years, from a man named Dale. Dale's gone now, so I suppose I can. There's a stretch of old federal highway out in the Nevada desert that I still take when I'm not in a hurry. And most days anymore, I'm not. The interstate runs maybe 9 miles north of it. The interstate will get you where you're going an hour faster, and you won't remember one single foot of it. That's the trade, you see. That's the bargain they made when they built the thing. Speed for memory. And folks took it. Of course they took it. You'd take it too. But the old road now. The old road you remember. It comes down off a long grade out of the mountains. miles, and it runs flat and straight through the bottom of a basin that is about the loneliest country God ever got around to finishing. Sage and salt and the bones of old fence line. It goes through what is left of a town called Calder, and there is not much left of Calder, I'll be honest with you. A gas station that closed when I was younger than you are. A church somebody still keeps the weeds down around. A few houses with the curtains drawn against nothing. And then the road goes out the other side of Calder, back into the sage. And about 4 miles past the last house, there's a building. It sits off on the right, by itself, with the desert all the way around it, and nothing else for a long, long way in either direction. The kind of alone that you can feel in your chest if you stop the truck and stand there a minute, which I have done once or twice. I don't make a habit of it. It was a motor court, that building, back when the road was alive. The way station, the sign said. And there's still a piece of the sign standing up on its pole, leaning now. A neon wagon, one of those covered wagons like the pioneers crossed in, done up in glass tubing, that used to light up at night and roll, sort of, the way those old signs would fake a little motion. A wagon, rolling west, forever, over the door of a place that promised you a bed. That sign has not lit up since before you were born. But I slow down for it, every single time. I don't always know why. I'm getting ahead of myself. That's the trouble with a story you've carried this long. It's all happening at once in your head, and you have to lay it back out flat to tell it. So let me lay it out flat. Let me start with Dale, because everything I know because of Dale. And a man ought to credit where a thing came from. He was not a dramatic man. I want to get that across to you right at the start, because the story is dramatic enough on its own, and it does not need a dramatic man telling it, and Dale wasn't one. He was big and slow and easy, and he had a way of looking at a thing for a long time before he said anything about it. And when he did say something about it, it was usually shorter than you expected and truer than you wanted. The way the county worked back then, and I guess it still works this way more or less, a young deputy gets the live calls, the bar fights, the wrecks, the fellow who's locked himself out and the fellow who's locked his wife out. And the older you get, the more they hand you the cold stuff, the paper, the boxes, the cases that didn't go anywhere and that nobody wants to look at, because looking at them just reminds everybody that they didn't go anywhere. Dale got handed the boxes. And here's the thing about Dale. He could not put a thing down once it was in his hands. Other men could. Other men were built to close a drawer and go home and eat their supper. Dale would close the drawer and the thing stay open in him somewhere, running all night for years. I think it cost him. I think it cost him a marriage and most of his sleep. And I think at the end, it cost him more than that. But that was Dale. He held things too long. Maybe that's why he told them to me. He needed to set some of it down somewhere. And I was the somewhere. I knew him 30-some years. I won't bore you with how. We were the kind of friends that didn't see each other but 2-3 times a year and didn't need to. And the way I got this story was a piece at a counter in a diner in Ely one time, a piece off a tailgate another time, with a six-pack going warm between us and the sun going down. A piece at a funeral of all the places, which is where he told me the worst of it, because a funeral will do that to a man. It'll pry the lid off. So you understand, I'm not handing you a police report. I'm handing you what one old man told another old man in pieces across half a lifetime. And here's the thing Dale taught me about stories like this one. I'll pass it to you now so you'll know how to listen. There are 3 kinds of things in a story like this. There's the facts, the things you can prove that are down in a file somewhere with a date on them. There's the things everybody knows that are just as true as the facts, truer maybe, only they would never stand up in a court of law because you can't prove them, you can only know them. And then there's the things you can't say at all, that you only feel in the back of your neck on a dark road. Dale spent his whole life on the line between the first kind and the second kind, the provable and the merely true. And he'd tell you, he told me more than once, that the gap between those two is where most of the evil in this world gets to live, because the law can only lay a hand on what it can prove. And everybody knew, and nobody could prove, and that mattered terribly in the end. And then again, in another way, it didn't matter at all. You'll see what I mean by the time we're through. So as I go, I'll try to tell you which kind of thing is. The proved, the known, and the felt, where I can. But the bones of it, the bones are true. There was a motel, there was a family, and there were people who drove west, tired and low on gas, and pulled in under that rolling neon wagon, and were never seen again. Picture it the way it was, say, 1971. Nixon's in the White House, gas is cheap, the whole country is still in love with the automobile. The interstate's coming, everybody knows it's coming. The surveyors have been through, there's talk in every cafe from here to the state line. But it isn't here yet, so the old federal highway is still the road, the only road. And it carries everything, the trucks, the families, the salesmen, the Air Force boys driving back to base, the kids with a mattress in the back of a van and a guitar and no particular plan. All of it funneled down onto this one 2-lane ribbon across 200 miles of the emptiest country in America. And here is the thing about that country that I need you to feel. It is far between places. It is far in a way that people from back east do not understand until they've done it. You can drive an hour and a half and not pass a lit window. The sun goes down behind the mountains, and the dark that comes is a real dark, a desert dark, the kind that your headlights just sort of bore a little tunnel into, and the tunnel moves with you, and that's all the world there is. So you're driving. You've been driving since Salt Lake, say, and you're tired. Not regular tired, road tired. The kind where your eyes start playing you little tricks at the edges, where you see a man standing at the side of the road, and then there's no man, where the white line starts to breathe. And your gas gauge is leaning on the E, and has been for 20 miles. And you're doing that thing where you turn the radio down like that'll help the engine sip slower. You know the math doesn't work. You turn it down anyway. And then, way out ahead, low, in all that black, there's a little smear of light. And as you come up on it, it resolves into a sign. And the sign says, vacancy. And under it, smaller, a thing that the first time you read it, you don't think twice about. It says, under new management. And brother, I am telling you, I have felt that exact feeling on that exact kind of night at 100 different little places over a lot of years on the road. There is no warmer word in the American language at 1 o'clock in the morning with your tank on empty than vacancy. It means stop. It means you made it. It means a bed and a door that locks and a shower with rust in the water and somebody who take your money and not ask you one single question about where you've been or where you think you're going. It means rest. That's all a motel ever was, really. A promise of rest, set out in the dark for the weary. There's something almost holy in it when you think on it. Lamps left on for strangers. That's what the way station was. That's exactly what it was. Fresh white paint that they'd put on when they took it over. You could still smell it, the waitress told Dale that first summer, the paint. A little cafe off the office end with a screen door that clapped. And in the office, behind the desk, a couple of framed photographs, an older man and an older woman, a couple, smiling the stiff way folks smiled for a camera back then. You wouldn't look at them twice. A traveler signing the book never looked at them twice. Hold on to those two photographs for me. We'll come back to them at the end, and you'll wish we hadn't. 10 units in a row, with a metal chair set outside each door, painted those colors they painted everything back then. That turquoise, that pale yellow, flowers in a coffee can, and the wagon rolling, rolling, rolling over the door. It was the most welcoming place on 100 miles of road. That was the whole idea. You see that now, I expect. It took everybody else a good while. There was the father, ran the office, heavy set, slow talking, the kind of man who'd come out wiping his hands on a rag and lean on your car door and ask, "Were you coming far?" Friendly, genuinely friendly. Dale talked to 2 or 3 folks over the years who'd stayed a night and driven on and lived, and not a one had a bad word. Nice fella, they'd say. Gave my kids a pop out of the machine, wouldn't take a dime. That was him. And here's the first little thing. File it under the second kind, the known but can't prove. More than one of them said he had a way of looking a man over while he talked. Friendly the whole time, but weighing you. what you drove, whether anybody was in the car but you. And then he'd say, easy as anything, I'll put you down in the end one, the quiet one, away from the road. Now, most folks got a room in the middle of the row, but some folks, some particular folks, got walked down to the end. And nobody ever thought a thing of it. Why would you? It's a kindness, the quiet room. There was the mother, and she was the warm one. She did the cooking in the little cafe, and she was known for her pie out there. What little there was to be known for out there. She'd send you off in the morning with a piece wrapped in wax paper for the road. Imagine the kindness of that, and then imagine carrying it after the way Dell did. And the mother was the one who read cards, palms. She had a little hand-painted board out by the road, off separate from the motel sign. Readings, it said, and advice, with a painted hand on it, all the lines marked out. And this was 1971, 72. You have to remember the times. Half the country was hunting for something just then. And a warm, motherly woman in the middle of all that desert who'd take your hand across her own kitchen table and tell you your future. Brother, that disarms a man down to the ground. There's no guard up against a woman like that. She'd hold your hand and look in your face and tell you the very thing you'd been hoping somebody would say. And while she held your one hand and looked in your face, she was learning you, where you were headed, who was expecting you and when, whether anybody was expecting you at all, whether you'd be missed by Tuesday or missed by Christmas, or missed by nobody ever in this world. She could draw all of that out of a man across a table while he sat there grateful, thinking she was reading his fortune. She was reading something all right. She just wasn't telling him what. There were two boys, older boys, teenagers, the both of them, though big the way ranch boys get big early. They did the work, hauled, fixed, mowed what little there was to mow, drove the family truck into Calder for supplies, and drove other places too at night that I'll come to. Quiet, the both of them. People didn't remember the boys near as well as they remembered the folks, and that, Dell came to think, was on purpose. The boys were the ones you weren't supposed to remember. Teenage boys. I'm going to say that again and then leave it sitting there. Two teenage boys. You raise children up inside a thing like that, and it's just the world to them. It's just how the family gets by. It's just the chores. And then there were the little ones. Two of them. Small. 6 and 4, somewhere in there. A boy and a little girl. And they did what little kids do. They played in the dirt lot out front. There was a tricycle. The little girl dragged a doll around everywhere by the one arm. And here is the worst thing I'm going to tell you in this whole stretch. And it isn't blood, it's this. When a tired man pulled in off that road at dusk and saw little kids playing in the lot, a tricycle, a doll in the dirt, pie cooling in the cafe window, that man's shoulders came down. You understand me? It set him at ease. It was the safest looking thing in all the world. You do not pull into a family place with little children playing out front and keep your guard up. You let it go. You let it all the way go. The children were part of how it worked. I don't say the children knew. I expect the little ones didn't know a single thing. But they were part of how it worked all the same. and they grew up inside it. And a man could lose a lot of sleep over what became of them. Dell did. Dell lost more sleep over the little ones than over almost any other piece of it. So that was the family. 6 of them. The friendly father, the mother with the pie and the cards, the 2 big quiet boys, and the 2 little ones with the tricycle and the doll. In fresh paint, under a rolling wagon, behind a desk where 2 strangers' photographs smiled down. And we will come to those photographs at the only lit door for 100 miles. You'd have stopped. I want you to sit with that. On that night, that tired, that empty, with the kids playing in the lot and the pie in the window, you would have stopped. And you would have been glad. And you would have thought your luck had finally turned. The night Dell told me the worst of this, the funeral I mentioned, he didn't start with the way station at all. He started 100 years before it, in 2 states over. He said, "Hank, you ever hear of the Bender family?" And I hadn't, so he told me. And I'm going to tell you, because Dell told it to me for a reason, and the reason matters. Out in Kansas, the 1870s, the frontier still raw. A family put up a little place along a wagon trail, a cabin really, with a counter for selling a few goods and a table where they'd feed a traveler and a couple of beds for the night, out where it was far between places. You see already why this was on Dale's mind. 4 of them, the Benders, a father, a mother, a son, and a daughter. And the daughter now, she gave herself out as a healer, a spiritualist. She'd give little talks. She advertised that she could cure your ailments and call up your dead. And people came from miles to sit with her. She was the draw. If any of this is starting to rhyme for you, well, it rhymed for Dell too. The cabin was 1 room, and they'd hung a canvas across the middle of it, a wagon cover, an old sheet of canvas, to make a front part and a back part. And when a traveler came, a traveler who looked to have a little money on him, a good horse, nobody waiting on him close, they'd sit him down at the table for his supper with his back to that canvas. Treat him kind, feed him. The daughter talking to him, friendly, leaning in. And one of the men would step up behind the canvas where the traveler couldn't see. And that's as far down that road as I'll walk with you, on the how of it. You've got an imagination, and I'd not insult it. I'll only tell you they kept it quiet, and they kept it close. And what was left of a man went down through a door in the floor into the cellar, and from the cellar, in time, out to the orchard. They had an orchard. They planted it themselves, and things grew well in that orchard. Things grew very well. They did it for years. A family, working together the way a family works a farm or runs a store. Each one with his job, each one knowing the other's jobs, sitting down to their own supper after at the same table where it was a family business. That is the thing that I could not get out of my head after Dale said it, and I expect it's the thing you'll carry too. It wasn't a monster in the woods. It was a mother, and a father and 2 grown children dividing up the work the way you divide up any work. And the work was robbery, and the work was murder, and they were good at it, and they sat down together after. And when the country finally got wise, when too many men had ridden that way and not ridden back, and people started asking, and a search party started forming, the Benders were gone, just gone. One day the cabin was empty, the stock untended, the door swinging. They'd had a day's warning, maybe 2, and they'd melted off into a country big enough to swallow them. And Hank, listen to me, they were never caught. Not ever. There's 100 stories about what became of them, and not one that ever held up. They did what they did for years as a family, and then they walked off the edge of the map and were never seen again. That's the whole story. That's the one Dale carried in his pocket his whole career, he said, like a stone. Because once you know a thing like that has happened, that it can happen, that a family can be that, you start seeing the shape of it everywhere. And then one day, out in the Nevada desert, 90-some years later, Dale saw the shape of it again. The same 4 parts, the place set far out, past where anybody keeps a close watch, the drawer at the table, the back turned, and the family gone in the night. Only the Benders had been 4 grown people. Ours were 6. And 2 of ours were little children playing in a dirt lot with a tricycle and a doll. Dale used to say that was the one way the new one was worse than the old. The Benders, at least, every last one of them was old enough to have chosen it. Ten units, I told you, in a row, numbered left to right, the way they always were. But the numbers ran 1 through 5, and then there was a gap, a wider gap than the others, where the office and the cafe broke the line, and then 6 through 10 on the far end. And it was 6. It was always 6. Dale worked that out late, and he worked it out cold from the register, because they kept a register, see, like any motel, names and dates and a ledger. And most of it was fake, but the room numbers were real. The room numbers they had no reason to fake. And when he laid it against everything else he had, the pattern was 6. A man traveling alone, a man with a good car, a man nobody was waiting on. He got walked down to 6. Friendly. Got you in our quiet one, away from the road noise. And it was away from the road noise. It was the farthest unit from everything. It was the one at the end where the desert started. Here's what 6 was like, and I'm going to give it to you slow because Dell gave it to me slow. The window was painted over from the inside, not curtained, painted. A coat of that same white paint on the glass, so that in the daytime the room held a kind of dead even light, and you could not see out, and this is the part, nobody could see in. Every other unit had a clear window and a curtain you could pull. 6 had paint. Now you tell yourself, walking in tired at 1 in the morning, you tell yourself somebody broke the glass once and this was the cheap fix, and you're so tired you don't care. You just want the bed. You don't think this was done on purpose. This was done so that whatever happens in here happens in a box. The bed was always made up fresh, newer mattress than the others. The boys saw to that. you think a stained old mattress in a place like that, and instead, the newest, cleanest mattress on the property. You'll understand why in a minute, and you'll wish you didn't. There was a chair, a heavy wooden chair, heavier than a motel room needs, set facing the painted window with its back to the door. And a man, tired, would set his bag down and sit in that chair to pull his boots off, with his back to the door. Always with his back to the door. The whole room was built, quiet, around getting a man to sit down with his back to the door. Same as a canvas curtain in a Kansas cabin. 90 years apart, and the same idea exactly. Because it is a good idea, God help us, it works. And evil doesn't throw away a thing that works, just because time's gone by. And there was one more thing in room 6, down low, a thing they had built into the very floor of it. But they didn't find that one until the dig, the cold week I'll get to, and I am going to keep it where it belongs, at the end, because that is where it landed on Dell, and it ought to land on you the same way. So just know this much, for now. That room had one more thing in it than a room is ever supposed to have. Hold that, the way you're holding the photographs. We'll get there. The smell, the waitress said, and she only ever stuck her head in 6 the one time, early, before she understood she shouldn't, because 6 was the one room she was told never to clean. The family did the in-room themselves, see. Don't you trouble about 6, honey. We do that one. Every other unit was hers to make up of a morning. Not that one. Never that one. And the one time she put her head in past the door, the smell was bleach, hard bleach, under everything. The kind of clean that is louder than dirt. The kind of clean a body puts up as a wall. And under the bleach, way down under it, faint, something she couldn't name and didn't try to and thought about the rest of her life. She quit not long after. We'll come to her. Now this next part, nobody saw this part. No witness, no file, no proof of it anywhere on God's earth. This is the second kind of thing I told you about, way back. The kind everybody knows and nobody could ever prove. But I'm going to tell it to you as true, because it is true. And Dale believed it was true. And you'll forgive an old man for telling you a true thing he can't prove. So picture the whole of it now. The traveler comes in off 200 miles of dark, tank empty, eyes gone, grateful past words for that vacancy light. The friendly man checks him in. The woman maybe sends a piece of pie down with him, a kindness, the last kindness. She's read his hand, and she knows there's nobody waiting on him. And they walk him down to the quiet one, away from the road noise, number 6, with the painted window and the fresh bed and the heavy chair facing away from the door. And he sits down to pull his boots off. And he is so glad to be off that road. That's what gets me still. In that last minute, he is glad. He thinks he's safe. He thinks the danger was out there on the highway, in the dark, in the empty, in the gas gauge, and that he's come in out of it, into the light, where people are kind. He had it exactly backwards. The dark road was the safe part. The light was the trap. The kindness was the trap. That was always the trap. Let me tell you about the waitress, because she's the one living soul in this whole thing who stood that close to it and walked away. And Dale tracked her down years on, and she's a piece of how he knew what he knew. She was a local girl, called a girl, took the job at the cafe that first summer, the summer of the fresh paint, because it was the only job a girl could get out there that didn't mean leaving. And she was 17 and didn't want to leave yet. And for a while it was just a job, pie and coffee and the screen door clapping. The family was good to her, paid her fair, which not everybody did a girl back then. But she started noticing things, the way you do. Not big things. That's important. That's the whole texture of it. There was never one big thing. There was just a slow gathering of small, wrong ones. She noticed the family already seemed to know things about a guest that the guest hadn't said. She'd be refilling a coffee, and the man'd be telling the mother across the table about how he was headed to his sister's in Sacramento. Only his sister wasn't expecting him till the end of the month. He'd left early, on a whim. And the waitress noticed how the mother went still, just for a second, at wasn't expecting him. The smallest thing, a stillness, like a cat goes still. And then warm again, right away, pouring it on. But the girl saw the still part. She saw it more than once. She came to dread it, that little stillness, though she couldn't have told you why. She noticed the register didn't match the cars. She'd see a nice car pull in at night, a real nice car, a man alone. And the next morning, she'd be wiping the counter and glance at the ledger, and there'd be no name for that unit, blank, like nobody'd stayed, and the car'd be gone. Well, the man left early, you tell yourself. Lots of men leave early. But she started, without meaning to, keeping a little count in her head of the cars that came and the names that didn't get written. And the count bothered her, and she made herself stop counting, because the count was the kind of thing that, once you've got it going, you can't put down. She was smarter than Dell that way. She knew to put it down. Dell never learned that in his life. And the thing that finally did it, the thing that got her to quit, was small too. It's always small. One morning, she came in early, before the family was up, to start the coffee. And one of the boys was out back, the older one, behind 6, with a wheelbarrow and a shovel, in the gray light before the sun, working the ground. And he looked up and saw her in the window, and he didn't do anything wrong. He just looked at her, held it, didn't smile. That boy never smiled. And then he went back to his digging like she wasn't there. And she stood at that coffee urn with her heart going, and she thought real clear, the way you think a thing once, and it's just true. I am going to leave this job today, and I am never going to ask myself why I left it, because I do not want to know the answer. And if I let myself know the answer, I will have to do something about it. And I am 17 years old, and I am afraid of these people. She quit that day. Told them her mother was poorly. The woman sent her home with a pie. She told Dale, and she was coming up on 50 by the time he found her. Married, grandkids, a whole long life built up on top of it. She told Dale she never ate another piece of pie as long as she lived, and never could explain it to her husband, and threw out every pie anybody ever brought to that house. And now her husband was gone, and she could finally say out loud why. She'd seen one of those boys digging behind 6 in the gray light, and she'd known. She'd known at 17, and she'd carried it the better part of 30 years, and never said it to a soul until a big, slow deputy, gone gray himself by then, knocked on her door and took his hat off and said, "Ma'am, I think you know something about a place called the Way Station." She wept, Dale said. Not for herself. She wept because she'd known and she'd left, and she'd let herself not know. And somewhere in the arithmetic of all the cars that came after she quit was every soul that might not have. Well, she carried that. That's a thing a person should not have to carry. And she carried it the better part of 30 years. And I think telling Dale finally set some of it down, the way I think Dale telling me set some of his down. That's all any of this is, maybe. Folks trying to set a stone down before they go. I told you the interstate was coming. It came in '74. They cut the ribbon up north, and the new road opened. 4 lanes, flat and fast, 9 miles away. And the old federal highway died. Not slow, fast, almost overnight. You have to have seen it happen to a road to believe how fast it goes. 1 month, there's trucks all night. Headlights strung out across the basin like a town that moves. The next month, nothing. The traffic just lifts up off the old road and sets down on the new one, and the old one's left there in the sun, like a snake's shed skin. And the towns on it died with it. Calder had had maybe a fighting chance before. After '74, it didn't. The gas station closed. People moved or just got old in place. And the way station? Well, you'd think the way station would have died too, and that'd be the end of it. A sad little story about a road that the country left behind. But here's the cool thing. The cool thing that Dell saw and that I want you to see. For a family in that particular line of work, the quiet road was better. Not worse. Better. Think it through. When the road was alive, there was risk. Lots of eyes. A man might pull in at 6 and another man pull in at 5 an hour later and hear something, see something. A patrol car might cruise through. The cafe was busy. People lingered. Folks knew folks. A busy road is a watched road, and watching is the thing they had to work around. But a dead road brought them exactly the kind of traveler they wanted and took away everybody who might have noticed. Because who's left on a bypassed highway after the interstate opens? Not families on vacation. They're on the new road. Not truckers on a schedule. New road. What's left is the strays. The fellow who took the old road by mistake, or because his car wouldn't do interstate speeds, or because he was the kind of man who took old roads on purpose because nobody'd be looking for him on one. The lost, the broke, the running, the ones already halfway to missing before they ever pulled in. The road thinned down to exactly the people nobody counts, and it delivered them, one at a time, tired and grateful, to to the only lit door for 100 miles. The vacancy sign meant more after 74, not less. There was a lot of vacancy. There was nothing but vacancy for 100 miles in every direction, including you can't put on a sign. I drove that old road again not long ago. Took it on purpose, the way I do. And I'll tell you how the place looks now, at the end, where it belongs, after you know what I know. For now, I just want you sure of one thing. It's a real place. You could drive out there tomorrow and stand where I stood. This isn't a thing that only happens in the dark of your head. It happened on a road you can find on a map, and I'll take you back to it before we're done. It came to Dale the way those things come, not as a case, as a smell. He started getting the inquiries. That's the word they used, inquiries. A sheriff's office 2 states over writes your sheriff's office, "We've got a missing man. Last known direction of travel was west on the old federal route. Did anything ever turn up your way?" And you write back, "No, nothing, sorry." And you file it. And 6 months later, there's another one, a different state, a different man, same road. File it. And a year on, another. Any one of them is nothing. A man who left a marriage, a man who owed money and lit out, a man who just wanted to be gone and made himself gone, which is a thing men do. And the most of those inquiries are exactly that, and resolve themselves sad and ordinary. Dell knew that. Everybody knew that. That's why it works. Because the country's already full of men who vanish on purpose. So a few who vanish on purpose of somebody else just sink right into the number and don't make a ripple. But Dale couldn't put it down. I keep coming back to that because it's the hinge the whole thing turns on. A normal man files the inquiries and they're separate pieces of paper in separate years and they never touch. Dale kept his in a box. One box, all of them, together. And one slow winter, he spread them out on his kitchen table, and he got a road map of the state, the real big paper kind, and he put a pencil mark on it for every last known, every last seen heading west, every place a wallet or a hat or a car turned up. And the marks made a line. They made a line down that old federal highway. And the line had a thick spot, a clot. Right at about right at about 4 miles past the last house in Calder. The marks crowded up there and thinned out either side of it like something living on that road had been feeding. And you could see where it fed by where the leavings fell. The cars were the part that took it from a feeling to a fact for Dale, because a couple of those missing men's cars did turn up eventually, years later, states away, and they'd been sold. Clean title, more or less, changed hands 2 to 3 times by the time anybody connected them. Repainted one of them, new plates. A car doesn't repaint itself. A car doesn't drive 2 states off and sell itself and a man not be found. Somebody took those cars somewhere and moved them and turned them into money. Money and distance, and that is a thing a family could do, with quiet boys who could drive in a road that nobody watched. In time, they didn't just take the men. They took the men, and they took the men's money, and they took the men's cars, and turned those into more money. And they did it as a going concern for years. The way you'd run any business that happened to have no customers who could complain. And Dale took his map and his box to people who could have done something more than once, over years. And I want to be fair because it's the part that'll make you angriest, and it deserves to be told fair. It wasn't that nobody believed him. It's that it belonged to nobody. Every piece was a different counties, a different states, a different years. There was no one desk in this country it all landed on. The man in Idaho had his missing man, and the man in Oregon had his, and Dale had a pencil map and a bad feeling. And a pencil map and a bad feeling does not get you a warrant, does not get you a crew and a cadaver dog and a week of overtime out at the end of a dead road. It gets you a thank you and a we'll keep it on file. Dale heard we'll keep it on file enough times to wallpaper that quiet room with it. And while Dale was making his map, they left. That's the thing. That's the Bender thing. Come around again. By the time anybody was ready to move on the way station, there was no family at the way station to move on. Nobody knows exactly when they went. That's almost the worst administrative little fact in the whole business. There was no raid, no warning shot, no day the law came up to drive and found the place empty and still warm. It was a dead road. Nobody was watching. They just stopped being there, sometime in there. And the not being there went unnoticed for weeks. Because who drives 4 miles past the last house in Calder on a bypassed highway to check is the motel still open? Nobody. That's who. When somebody finally did go out, and it was a county thing, a tax thing, of all the undramatic reasons, somebody noticing the place had gone quiet on the roads, here's what they found. The units stripped, beds down to the ticking, the cafe cleaned out, the urn dry, the screen door still clapping in the wind. Clap, clap, with nobody to come to it. The register gone, the office key left under the mat, which is a thing that has stayed with me, the courtesy of it. They locked up after themselves and left the key for whoever came, polite as you please, like a family that's given up a lease and wants their deposit back. 2 things they did not take though. Behind the building, pulled around back where you'd never see it from the road, there was a camper truck, an old one, flat tires, sunk to the rims, sat there so long the desert had near grown up through it. And it was not the family's. The family had their own truck, and that was gone with them. This was somebody else's camper, somebody who had driven it in there once on some ordinary evening and never driven it out. And in the office, behind the desk, still hanging, those 2 framed photographs, the older man, the older woman, The couple smiling their stiff smile. The family left in such a hurry, or such a calm, that they carried off the register and the cash and the sheets right down to the ticking, and they left two strangers' photographs hanging on the wall. You remember I told you to hold on to those, and the sign. They'd switched it off. The wagon wasn't rolling. For the first time in years, the wagon had stopped rolling west, and the vacancy light was dark, and the under new management board was face down in the weeds where the wind had laid it. And here's the thing that's not small at all. That under new management board, Dale chased it naturally, the way he chased everything. Who was the management before? Who'd run the way station that summer before the family put their fresh paint over it? And Dale found him. Found his name anyhow. A single fella and his wife ran the place a long while, kept to themselves, way out there with no neighbor inside of 40 miles. And then, the way the accounts all went, they'd sold up and moved on that one summer, and the family had it after. Sold up and moved on. That's what folks understood. Only Dale could never turn up one single paper that man signed. Not a bill of sale, not a deed, not a forwarding address, not so much as a postcard ever again from a man and a woman who lived in that county the better part of 30 years. They didn't move on, they just stopped. The summer of the fresh paint, the two of them just stopped being anywhere on this earth. And their photographs hung behind that desk the whole time. The family never took them down, left them right there, over the desk, over the register, over every weary soul who ever signed that book. The man and the woman who'd built the place, smiling down on what it became. And his camper sat around back, sunk to the rims the whole time too. That's the second kind of knowing again. The kind everybody could see and nobody could prove. There was no body for the man and his wife, not then, not in any courtroom sense. Would you tell me what under new management meant at the way station? You tell me whose faces those were behind the desk. New management had to start somewhere. It started with the two people smiling down on the register. They were the first. Before they ever hung their board, the family had already done it once, to the people who owned the welcome they were standing inside of. So they were gone, like the Benders were gone. 90 years and 1,500 miles apart, and the same ending exactly. The empty place, the swinging door. The family melted off into a country big enough to take them, and never, not ever, run to ground. I've thought about whether that's the thing that makes a family able to do this. Not cruelty exactly, but the knowing when, the animal sense of the day to leave, that a lone man never seems to have, but a family, a working unit, somehow does. They felt the country getting wise the way you feel weather, and they went. And wherever they went, they likely set up again, is the thing Dale couldn't sleep next to. A new road, a new board, new paint. Folks don't stop being what they are. They just find a quieter road. went out to dig in the winter of 2004. You heard that right. Not 1976, a year or two after they ran. 2004. Near 30 years on. That's how long it took Dale. 30 years of the map and the box and the we'll keep it on file. 30 years of being one aging deputy with a pencil and a bad feeling up against a thing that belonged to no single desk anywhere in the country. And what finally turned it, in the end, wasn't the map at all. It was the waitress. He'd run her down at last, an old woman by then, the thing still in her like a splinter the skin had grown over. And a witness, even a 30 years late witness, even one who'd never seen the worst of it with her own eyes, who'd only seen a teenage boy out back with a wheelbarrow and a shovel in the gray light. A witness is a thing a pencil map is not. A witness got Dale his week and his crew and his dog at long last. When he was near too old to stand out there in the cold for it. It was January. I want you to have the code because Dale never told it without the code. That basin in January is a wind that comes 200 miles without anything to slow it and goes through canvas and goes through a man, and the ground is iron. They had to work it in sections, thaw and dig, thaw and dig. Dog and a county crew and Dale, who was not young anymore, standing in it with his hands in his coat at the end of a dead road behind unit number 6. Now, remember I told you room 6 had one more thing in it, one more thing than a room should, down low, that they didn't find till they went inside. This is where I give it to you. When they opened up 6, that cold week, one of them noticed the carpet in there wasn't tacked down like the others. It was a remnant, loose, laid in, not fixed. And a young deputy took a corner of it and pulled, and the whole thing came up off the floor in one piece, easy, like it was meant to come up easy. And underneath was concrete, poured concrete, in a room where every other floor in the place was just board over dirt. And set in the middle of that concrete, there was a drain in the floor of a motel room. And the floor, they had troweled a slope into it, so gentle you would never feel it under your boots. A slope running down from all 4 walls toward that one drain in the middle, so that anything spilled in that room would go one way and gather in one place and go down and be gone. There is no honest reason on God's earth for a drain in the floor of a motel room. A man pours a floor to slope toward a drain because he is planning, ahead of time, calm, on some ordinary afternoon with a trowel in his hand, to need to wash that floor down and have it all run somewhere. Dell told me he stood and looked at that drain longer than he looked at anything else in his whole career. 40 years a lawman, and the thing he looked at longest was a drain in a motel floor. And then they went out back, behind 6, where the ground had that same gentle slope worked into it, running down toward the same kind of low place. Because these were people who understood drainage, who understood the lay of the land. And that is a piece of knowledge I wish to God I did not have. And now you have it too. And I am sorry for it. I'm not going to make a show of the rest. I told you a while back I'd not insult your imagination, and I'll hold to that now when it counts the most. Dell didn't make a show of it to me, and it would dishonor him for me to make one to you. I'll only tell you it took the week, and I'll tell you the dog did not have to work hard. I'll tell you two things they brought up, and then I'll stop, because two is enough. And Dale stopped at two when he told me, and a man should take his cues on when to stop from the man who was there. They brought up a watch, a man's wristwatch. And the thing about it, the thing Dale carried was that it was still going. Wound tight, or it was one of the self-winding kind, I never asked. But it had sat in that ground through everything, and it was still keeping time when it came up into the January light. Still ticking, still telling somebody's correct hour, faithful, like it hadn't gotten the news. A little machine doing its one job over a man who couldn't do anything anymore at all. Dale said he had to walk off a ways when they found the watch still going. The watch was the one that got him, not the larger findings, the watch. And the other thing, there was a child's shoe. I'm going to leave that there. I'm not going to build anything on it. I'm not going to tell you what it means, because the not knowing is the true thing. And any meaning I hung on it would be me lying to you to make it bearable. And it doesn't get to be bearable, that one. A child's shoe in the ground behind Unit 6. That's all. That's the sentence. I've carried it 20 years exactly as that sentence, and I'm handing it to you the same way Dale handed it to me. And now we both have it, and there's nothing to do with it but hold it. The count. You'll want the count. Here's the count. Nobody knows. That's the count. They brought up more than a few, and fewer than you'd fear. And the true number is not a number anybody will ever have, because the ground out there is wide, and the years were many, and the cars drove off 2 states away and sold themselves, and the dead road kept no register that was true. The Benders, they say 11, they say 21, they say nobody knows, and that's the count at the way station too. Nobody knows. And Dell told me at that funeral, with his tie loose and his guard down for once in his life, that the not knowing the number was the thing he could not get out from under. He said you could maybe make a kind of peace with a number. You can't make any peace at all with nobody knows, because nobody knows means there's a man out there somewhere, more than one, that nobody is even missing. That fell through every crack there is, that nobody will ever light a candle for, because nobody ever knew to. Somebody loved every one of them, Hank, he said, and some of them nobody even knows to miss. I can't, and he didn't finish it. That's the only time I saw Dell not finish a sentence. He always finished his sentences, short and true and finished. That one he left open, and it stayed open, and he's in the ground himself now, and it's still open. There's an older layer, and I'll give it to you quick because Dell gave it to me quick and then we never spoke of it again. Going through the oldest county boxes, and Dale went through everything. You understand by now that Dale went through everything. He found that the same patch of ground had a way station on it in the 1880s, a real one, a stage stop, where the coaches changed teams and a traveler could get a meal and a bed far out, a day's ride from anywhere. And the man who kept it got asked about twice by the county. Freighters who'd started across the basin from his door and not reached the far side. He was never charged with one thing. And then one season he was gone, and the stage stop stood empty, and in time, a motor court got built on the same ground and got fresh paint and a rolling neon wagon and a board that said, "Under new management." Dale never said it was the same thing. I want to be careful here because Dale was careful here, and he was the most careful man I knew. He didn't believe in haunts, neither do I, much. He just laid the two facts down side by side on his kitchen table. The stage keeper in the 1880s, the family in the 1970s, the same 4 miles past the last house. And he looked at them a long time, the way he looked at everything a long time. And he didn't draw the line between them. He just left the two facts sitting there. And I'm going to do the same. I'm going to set them down in front of you and not draw the line. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe a far lonely place on a long road just naturally collects the kind of man who'd use it that way, the way a low spot collects water. Maybe the road doesn't do anything. Maybe the road just waits and is patient and is far between places, and that's enough. I don't know. Dale didn't know. Nobody knows. There's that phrase again. It's the truest phrase in this whole story, and I've come to think it's the truest phrase there is about most things. Dale kept the box the rest of his life. Never closed it. Couldn't. They don't close those. You don't close them. They close you. Eventually. A little at a time. He worked it on his weekends till he couldn't work anymore, chasing that family down dead ends, a family scattered to the four winds. The parents long dead by now, surely. The two boys grown men somewhere, with families of their own, who'd have raised their own children with that thing folded up inside them like a letter they never showed anybody. And the two little ones, the tricycle, the doll, who'd be near my own age now, grown all the way up, gone out into the world, carrying God alone knows what. Dale looked for all of them, an old man with a pencil map, and he never found a one. Of course he never found them. The Benders were never found either. That is how this kind of story ends, which is to say, it doesn't end. Which is to say, I told you at the very start, I never got the end of it. And now you see, I wasn't being coy. There is no end. There is just a box and a map and a dead road and a building and a camper truck around back of it that the sand has near finished burying. You'll want to know, did anybody ever pay for it? That's the natural thing to want to know, and I'd think less of you if you didn't. And the answer is no. Nobody was ever charged with one single thing. Couldn't be. There was nobody left to charge. They were gone. And the most of what we know is the second kind of knowing, the kind that's true as daylight and wouldn't last 5 minutes in front of a judge. Everybody knew. Nobody could prove. And I told you, way back at the start, that the gap between those two is where the evil gets to live, and that it would matter terribly in the end, and then again, it wouldn't matter at all. Well, here's the both of those at once, and you can hold them in the one hand. It matters because a family did this and walked away clean, and old age likely took them in their own beds, somewhere with a nice view, and that is a wrong in the order of things that does not close. And it does not matter, not 1 ounce, to the man whose watch was still keeping time down in that ground. He is no more found, and no less, whether a court ever said the word or not. The law and the truth are 2 different roads out there. They don't always meet, and the desert does not care which one you came in on. He told me one last thing at that funeral and made me promise not to repeat it. And I kept that promise the whole time he was alive. But Dale's gone now, a year this spring. So, he took my arm. Dale wasn't the man who touched you. He took my arm and he said, "Hank, if you ever take the old road, don't stop at that place after dark. I mean it. Don't stop there low on gas. Don't stop there tired." And I said, "Dale, it's been empty 30 years. There's nobody." And he said, "I know there's nobody. That's not what I'm telling you. I'm telling you the place was built to take a tired man in the dark. It was built for it. Twice that we know of, maybe more. A thing built that careful for one purpose. I don't believe it forgets the purpose just because the builders left. You go past it tired in the dark, and some old part of you is going to want to stop. It's going to look like rest. Don't you stop." So I don't. That's why I slow down, but I don't stop. That's the whole reason, and now you know it. I take the old road because somebody ought to, because that watch was still keeping time, and somebody ought to drive past slow and let the place know it's not forgotten, that we know what it was, that the not knowing the number doesn't mean the not knowing it happened. I owe Dale that much, and Dale owed it to a girl who saw a boy digging in the gray light, and she owed it to a watch still ticking under the ground, and on back, and on back, somebody owing somebody the simple act of not forgetting. But I don't stop. Not there. Not after dark. Not low on gas. Not tired. And if you're ever out that way out in the basin, on the dead road, 4 miles past the last house in Calder, and it's late, and you tanks leaning on the E, and out ahead in all that black, there's the bones of an old sign, you keep driving. You hear me? It'll look like rest. It is the oldest thing in the world dressed up as rest. You keep driving. You go on to the next place. The next place will be honest. Sleep good.